And speaking of minimum wage, we're going to be talking about minimum wage here in this article, as this is from The Week, by the way. One of the biggest crime waves in America isn't what you think it is. In dollar terms, what groups of Americans steal the most from their fellow citizens each year? The answer might surprise you. It's employers, many of whom are committing what's known as wage theft. It's not just about underpaying workers. They're not paying workers what they're legally owed for the labor they put in. I'm reading this article mostly as response bait because I cannot remember which group chat it was, but in one of my Twitter group chats, AOC was like tweeting and bitching about wage theft supposedly. And in that tweet, she shared this article to try and supposedly back up her arguments and so forth. And I just want to like respond to the general arguments talking about a quote unquote wage theft. And as you all know, I don't believe in wage theft or labor theft to be a thing. It's not theft if you can like consensually, if you can like leave your job. If it's, as long as it's consensual employment, it is not theft. As long as the deal between employer and employee is consensual, it's not theft or slavery or any of that other crap. So quit trying to twist terms. Although this article does go talking about a whole lot about laws and legality around wage. It takes different forms. Not paying workers the federal, state, or local minimum wage, well, I mean, they are kind of breaking the law, but at the same time, I believe that the minimum wage should be abolished, so that's almost a moot point to me. And when you say not paying workers these said minimum wages, are you referring to illegal immigrants by chance? Because that's the only people that I can imagine them really getting away with. Not paying them overtime or just monkeying around with job titles to avoid regulations. Man, it's so arbitrary. A job title determining what wage that you should be given. That's just bullshit. If the government is like getting involved to make laws that you should pay your employee what they determine a certain title employee is deserving, well, that's pretty infringing on liberty right there. No one knows exactly how big a problem wage theft is, but in 2012, federal and state agencies recovered $933 million for victims of wage theft. By comparison, all the property taken in all the robberies of all types in 2012, solved or unsolved, amounted to a little under $341 million. You can like drop that 933 million figure right there because it's not theft, plain and simple. The only reason why it's theft is because the government says so. Is because government's laws and so forth, which are outright bullcrap in of themselves. The most dramatic recent example occurred right on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. The Senate employs several hundred food service workers in its cafeterias through a private contractor. Last December, those workers successfully organized for a pay raise. All right, but then the workers discovered the private contractor was demoting them into job titles, but not changing their duties to get around federal regulations about how much government contractors need to compensate their employees. I mean, if that's a tactic that they got to take in order to practice their liberties, well, then let that be the tactic that they want to take. In all honesty, the laws should be repealed in the first place, and if that's the tactic that they want to take to try to get around those intrusive laws, well, then let them. That's not to say that I think that these employees, I mean, I do not know the story or the situation of these employees, looking at them on a subjective basis anyways. Like, for all I know, if I were to look at them, I could think that, in my opinion, that they might be deserving of a wage raise. But at the same time, it's not my job really to dictate to them that, hey, you should pay X, Y, Z to your employees. I could make a suggestion. They can make a suggestion, but really, it's their own business. That kicked off a Labor Department probe, which found the contractors had been shortchanging the workers in other ways since 2010. Now, 674 employees will be getting over $1 million total in back pay, or about $1,500 per person. Wow. Well, that's what you get for breaking a rather anti-libertarian law right there, folks. This summer saw a record wage theft settlement when 18 car wash workers from New Jersey and New York were awarded $1.65 million for denied pay and emotional distress. Emotional distress? What the heck? Now we are going to be compensating people based off of their feelings? I can't even. The snowflakery. The numbers are astounding. 26% of the workers in their sample were paid less than the minimum wage, and 2/3 of those were stiffed by more than $1 an hour. 76% were not paid for overtime. They worked the previous week, 11 hours of it on average. 2/3 were denied legally required meal breaks, and half of those who were injured and tried to claim workers' compensation were subjected to some form of illegal retaliation. Some industries, like construction and education, had relatively low rates of wage theft. I mean, color me surprised. Restaurants, grocery stores, and warehouses fell in the mid-range of 20 to 25%. Textile and clothes manufacturing and other services hit 40%. And a whopping 66% of childcare workers endured minimum wage violations, and 90% put up with overtime violations. Women saw minimum wage violations at significantly higher rates than men. What are you basing it off of? Just I'm curious. Wage theft was 3 times higher for blacks than for whites, and highest of all for Latinos. Employees at smaller businesses were more at risk, as well as employees with less education, though wage theft happens often even to the college educated. Employees at smaller businesses were more at risk. Well, that's not too surprising because government is not able to keep an eye on every single small mom and pop shop that sets up their shop in the boonies, way out in the boonies. And I would say that's a good thing, by the way. Total wage theft in just those 3 cities amounted to almost $3 billion annually. The Economic Policy Institute, well, okay, yeah, they were talking more specifically about 3 big cities, but I digress. Total wage theft in just those 3 cities amounted to almost $3 billion annually. The Economic Policy Institute estimated that if the patterns the study found are generalizable for the entire country, wage theft is $50 billion a year. The Department of Labor only has 1,000 to 1,100 staff members looking into violations of wage and hour laws for the entire country. The Obama administration has requested an increase in funding for enforcement at least three times, but Congress has denied them. Okay, I guess I can kind of put that as evidence as to how Obama was a big spender. Well, he might have not been successful at it, but he was still for that kind of spending, or for policies anyways that would end up to bigger spending. I mean, not only is there the stimulus package way back in, what was it, 2009? I think that was when it was. But also this, an increase in funding for a bureaucracy to make sure that, there's not this kind of quote-unquote wage theft. Wage theft is usually treated as a civil matter or dealt with by fines, and employers very rarely go to jail for it. A Papa John's franchise owner made headlines in 2015 when he was sentenced to a mere 60 days. Compare that to the thousands of poor and non-white Americans who spend months, years, or even their entire lives in prison for petty theft or drug possession. Prosecutors and labor groups seem to be getting more aggressive about pursuing wage theft, and several senators are pushing a bill to increase staffing and funding to go after wage theft and to crank up penalties, regulations, and recovery of back pay. But for now, the consequences remain paltry and the crime spree continues. And I do want to mention that mention of Obama by the week here, that this article was released in late 2016, August 15th to be more exact. So that's why that they were talking about Obama in present tense. So basically, what they're determining to be wage theft is based off of what daddy government says. But daddy government is using crackpot definitions of theft. Well, they're saying it's theft because you break a law. I mean, whether or not the law is justified I mean, that aside of whether or not the law is justified, it still is not theft because they are still consensually staying in the job that they might be getting paid a crap wage. Ultimately, what determines theft is whether or not a person is forced to do XYZ or has something forcefully taken from them. And really, even if the law is in place, the employer is still not taking anything away from the employee. They're just refraining from giving something that the government says, oh, you are owed this employee this much. That's it. That's not. I don't know what other better way to put it. That's simply not theft. Oh hey, you've made it to the end of the video. If you like what you see and hear, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button down below, please. If you want to see more content like this video is actually just a mere clip from a full live stream episode of my political show, Strike Force. Link down below for the full stream. Go check that out, and also subscribe and set the bell notification button to all to keep notified of this channel. I also have a BitChute channel under the same name, The Dark Conservatarian, and a Twitter and Subscribe star that may or may not be approved of yet. Links for those two as well in the description box. Hope to see you all later. Good day, and God bless.